Trump did something very, very, very interesting, and he unveiled a child care plan. He unveiled a child care plan, and he also has just said that he believes people should get 6 weeks maternity leave. Kind of fascinating when he starts talking logical. Now, I mean, it sounds right, like it sounds almost like normal train of thought, right? But then when you start, like, the heart of the proposal, it's likely that this has been heavily influenced by his daughter Ivanka, and he has said before that he was going to develop something with his daughter. The heart of the proposal is, Trump has said, for many families in our country, childcare is now the single largest expense. Who would think that? I'm sure he doesn't fall his millions and billions or whatever he supposedly has, even more so than housing. And this is true. This is factual. He's speaking. Now he's talking to people, on terms they actually feel real life every day. We should be concerned about this because he's making sense a little bit right now. The proposal would make all child care expenses deductible, disproportionately help those with higher incomes. Is what it's saying. It disproportionately helps those with higher incomes. It's tax deductible versus a tax credit. It would help individuals only making less than $250,000 a year and couples earning less than $500,000 a year. So if you are sending your kids to one of those foo-foo fancy preschools that you got to apply for while they're in utero, this might help you out. Like, for real, boo. Seriously. It only helps individuals making less. Well, I already said that. And then stay-at-home mothers. This is interesting. Part of the proposal is that stay-at-home parents can deduct the average cost of childcare from their taxes. And then he's also talking about guaranteed 6 weeks paid maternity leave, which would be interesting if it's just maternity leave, or if it would be family. If they would consider paternity leave. It just sounds. I mean, since they're calling it maternity leave, it seems like it's just maternity leave. And there's a big push for paid family leave in general. Coming from the Democratic side, we saw Bernie Sanders had put forth a plan, that was basically the Senate Democrats' plan. And Secretary Clinton has some variant of that as well. That would be for actual family leave. So not just maternity leave for women who have had children, but for people in general in need of caring for another family member. So that's a whole other conversation. But supposedly he's going to pay for the maternity leave, the 6 weeks paid maternity leave, by eliminating fraud in the unemployment insurance program. Yeah, all right, guy. Good luck with that one. Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of people who actually should get unemployment and don't even get it, but that's a whole nother conversation. Dependent care savings accounts would be available to everyone. And those on the lower end of the income scale would see the government contribute $500 for every $1,000 contributed by individuals. So if you're not familiar with dependent care savings, I work, like I said, with my position, we do have access, and it's a pre-tax savings account. Has applied, like in my job and others, is a pre-tax savings account, and basically before your tax, that money that you're putting over aside for childcare, summer camp, whatever it is, it would come out off top, and then your tax on the remainder. It's the same thing like a flex spending account works with your medical expenses, right? So that would be cool. That if they would make a matching, if there's not a matching, but there's a contribution. So if you put in $1,000, then the federal government will put in $500. That's actually kind of an interesting, idea. And usually what it is like how it works for us anyway is, you pay your expenses and then you submit your reimbursement periodically, and then you get reimbursed that money back. So in some ways, if it evens out, it's almost like you're not actually paying anything in a way. It is actually. Dependent care savings accounts having that flexibility, it can actually be a really good opportunity and benefit. My kids have aged out, so I don't get the benefit of that even for summer camp anymore. But that's a whole nother story. But they did not put a price tag on any of this stuff, but claimed they would be absorbed by revenues from Trump's tax plan and would ultimately be deficit neutral. And this was built under the assumption of dynamic scoring, which builds into economic policy models that predicted reaction to policy incentives. So it's the same tax plan basically that blows a hole in the federal budget anyway. So it is, there are a lot of issues and there are a lot of holes and problems and gaps in the proposal. But to the average voter just listening, right? To people who already are on the fence or not really sure. And I know, how can anyone be on the fence and not sure, in terms of supporting him? I'm not saying necessarily in choosing between the two of them, but whether or not they're supporting him, because there are those people out there who do think that he may be an okay option for them. This type of stuff kind of makes him seem like a normal candidate, right? Like, it seems like a logical and realistic proposal that has been put out there. And the rhetoric, he's starting to actually put out real policy proposals. He's going to continue to do the same things that he's doing, but he's actually putting out real policy proposals. And Team Clinton, Secretary Clinton, as everyone knows, was sick, whether it was pneumonia or whatever else, who knows, but she will be back on the trail starting tomorrow. And that's what she needs to do, because, they were talking about her college plan, I think it was the other day. I went on her website and did the calculator to see what my savings would be, blah, blah, blah. But like, everything that's proposed is already stuff I'm eligible for now under existing like regulations. So unless she's going to guarantee that the public service loan forgiveness never goes away, I don't really see, in terms of like the loan side of her proposal, what actually is different than what already exists. I can already reduce my monthly payments to what it estimated. It told me on the website. There's several things I can already do now. I'm not sure what the difference is. So she really needs to step up her game, though, across the board about the policy proposals, because something like this Trump childcare plan, even though, like I said, there are holes in it, there are some issues. Again, the 6 weeks paid maternity leave, it doesn't address family leave as a whole. There still is no conversation about sick leave. It still is an attempt, or it seems to be an attempt, at least, right, of putting out normal policy proposals that will appeal to the average American. And a lot of the average person doesn't understand all the jargon in terms of like revenue and how it's going to get paid for and stuff. They just want to know what you're going to do. And he's saying what he's going to do, and her people are still attacking him. And that doesn't necessarily look good. So I understand, all the intellectual arguments against Trump. I make several of them all the time, but like strategy wise, in these last 60 days, and it's actually less than 60 days at this point, I mean, we really need to be looking at the policies, the issues, and speaking to the heart of the people. And this goes for everyone who's running for office, those who are trying to get on that big stage, and those who are guaranteed a spot on that stage. We need to be talking about the issues and the policies that matter to voters, and not all this infighting and blaming Russia for stuff, because that's like tired. Well, one thing I was just thinking about too, just real quickly, my brain just remembering about the difference with his plan too, is the difference between, he's talking about doing deductions versus credits. And if a tax credit, like you get that $1,000 tax credit for childcare or whatever, right? That's $1,000 just off. But if you get a deduction, you get a deduction off your taxable income, and that basically has to do with like your overall like your tax bracket and your margin, the rate you're taxed at. So like they're different calculations. So whether or not, if you're someone who's making, $30,000 a year, what benefit this will actually be, I'd need to see, some numbers crunch to see what this would actually, like the way his plan is laid out. Does it actually benefit the average working family that's paying for childcare? Is this really going to help me if I am, getting a deduction versus a tax credit? Because like now you have the earned income tax credit, you have a child tax credit, you can get credit for childcare stuff now. But what he's saying is that ultimately all of your childcare would be a deduction. So I'd like to see like, some scenarios run with the numbers to see the difference of how that actually plays out and what type of benefit that really would be in the long run.